It works.
It works.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So then the script tells you
Ok,
when you come to so if you just follow those. So
Okay.
for most of the time I would just say next.
because you read the text, so I can,
You can
okay,
you can
follow you.
follow that, but then but at the
Go
certain
on,
times,
and go on.
when there are these few that comes
Okay,
one
okay.
line by the one.
No problem.
Then there is an instruction there.
Yeah.
Yep.
No problem.
So sometimes it's just throw them all out at the
Ok.
Yep.
Thank you. First one.
So,
Per i video non ci dovrebbero essere problemi, perché mi ha detto serve anche l'audio per i link. Non ci dovrebbero essere problemi perché come per i PowerPoint c'è l'audio, cioè, lo stesso dovrebbe essere per i link normalmente.
Sì.
Però a quel punto vieni, io ti lascio la postazione.
Se vuoi metto una sedia di fianco.
Prendo io.
Sì, ora magari la prendiamo e
E un'ultima
dovrebbero essere tutti
domanda
aperti.
è il workshop. Io faccio il workshop con Johan.
Sì.
Anche quello è streaming o è...
Allora, il workshop, da quello che so io da programma, dovrebbe essere solo in presenza.
Ok. Perché riusciamo a usare un computer da lì? O è...
Allora, alle 11:30 arriva il tecnico.
Ok.
Quindi magari per i cambiamenti possiamo sentire lui. Niente, figurati. Oggi doveva essere la cosa semplice. Allora, scorso di Mattarella se ne va.
Ciao.
Questo lo teniamo aperto con i 3 links.
Avete un qualcosa non in muto, in qualche intenzione?
Sì, sì, sì. Buongiorno a tutti. Stiamo per iniziare, faccio un brevissimo annuncio, soprattutto destinato ai dottorandi che vengono da altre accademie o altre istituzioni del comparto AFAM. Oggi pomeriggio ci sarà uno workshop dedicato al Research Catalog tra le 2:30 e le 4:30. Ho avuto modo di scrivere gli studenti di Brera che erano interessati, ma non di comunicare questa cosa. Certo, non di comunicare questa cosa a voi, volevo solo dirvi che se siete interessati a partecipare al desk lì in fondo avete la possibilità di comunicare il vostro nome, il vostro indirizzo email e anticipare la registrazione alla piattaforma. Questo salva a tempo al workshop perché una volta che sarete iscritti potrete già cominciare a lavorare sulla piattaforma. Sempre per i dottorandi, alcuni ieri hanno chiesto se rilasciavamo un certificato, è possibile. Voi firmate all'altro desk là in fondo specificando che avete necessità del rilascio di un certificato da parte dell'Accademia e poi ve lo manderemo finito l'evento via email. In questo modo avete qualcosa per attestare alla vostra istituzione che avete partecipato a questo seminario. Perfetto. I switch to English and I pass the microphone to Lorella Scacco, which is going to introduce the first panel.
Thank you. So here we are. First of all, warmly welcome to everyone at the second day of the International Seminar, Theories and Practices of Contemporary Artistic Research, a Transdisciplinary Approach. It is a part of IartNET, an international platform for artistic practice and cultural heritage in Italian higher arts education institutions, funded by NextGenerationEU and coordinated by Nicoletta Leonardi. The seminar is curated by Domenico Quaranta. Now, let me introduce myself. For those who don't know me, I am Lorella Scacco, I am an art historian, and I teach phenomenology of contemporary arts at the Brera Academy of Fine Arts for the BA and MA level courses. As you know, phenomenology is the study of phenomena as they manifest themselves to experience in time and space. In each of my teaching course, I try to highlight themes that emerge in the latest generation of artists. Thus, it's really a pleasure to be here and to chair this panel, which examines some key issues in contemporary artistic research with our guest speakers. We start from the topic of the relations among humans, other living organisms, and the technologies discussed by the scholar Christine Berghaus. Then we will move to the impact of automation and artificial intelligence on contemporary artistic practice examined by Antonio Somaini. And last but not least, sustainability and the care of the common good in design architecture, argued by Alessandro Bonizzoni as a representative of the collective Fosbury architecture. I give you this information. At the end of the 3 lectures, we are going to hold a question and answer session. So please take a note of your questions to the relators if you wish to do that. So let's start from Christine Berghaus, a pioneer in the field of Norwegian media art scene. She explores contemporary conditions through performative and technological strategies informed by cultural history, scientific data, and narratives. Her work blurs boundaries between art research Art and Research, emphasizing sensory and communicative experimentation. Her transdisciplinary and transcultural approach to evolving environments is evident in projects like Oslo Fjords Ecologies since 2016 to nowadays. Today, Kristin is a professor at the Oslo Met's Faculty of Technology, Art and Design, and also the research leader at the faculty. Here, Kristin Berghaus presents the project Ocean Connections, a two-channel video installation developed with two scientists to investigate the biodiversity history of the Oslo Fjord. And not only this. The project intertwines visual and auditory technologies with indigenous and agricultural traditions. This lecture by Berghaus is linked to that contemporary artistic research which analyzes how our relationship with non-human animals is represented, negotiated, and questioned in visual culture. It is important to problematize the human-centeredness of the phenomenon and bring the agency of the non-human to the center from the arts, of attention from the arts. In fact, this kind of research not only addresses ecological issues, but also indicates that the relationships between humans and non-human significant others co-evolve with each other in complex and asymmetrical ways. Through her work, Berghaus tries to inspire action and reimagine our relationship with the natural world. I now give the floor to Kristin Berghaus.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction. And thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me all the way from Norway to talk about this. I realized when I prepared for the lecture that I need to give you some context and some backgrounds for the work Ocean Connections. So even if it's this one installation is the main topic, I would like to tell you about some different collaborations, and it might be interesting also in this context, since there are so many ways to do research, and it often entails some kind of collaboration. So what you see here on the slide is an overview of Futures of Living Technologies, which was a project that I set up and was the project leader of between 2020 and 2023. I did this at the Faculty of Technology, Art and Design in the University Oslo Met, as Lorella mentioned. The project was multi-method and many types of results. I hope you can read the slide here. Yeah, I can say slightly, we were an interdisciplinary group. Yes, thank you. That's the next one. And here you see some of the most important people. Because we had the funding from the Norwegian Artistic Research Program, we were able to hire a postdoc. That was Maria Castellanos, a Spanish artist. We could have a PhD fellow. We attracted some people that we didn't have to pay for, but who wanted to work with us anyway. A PhD fellow in art theory came along, and we also had a PhD fellow from the ICT department working with us, and one ICT professor and two visual art professors, and maybe some more people. Different students, assistants, and quite a large group at times. At other times, we were fewer people. You can change, please. The slide, yeah. Together, we discussed and had some workshops and a larger conference. This was 2020, so we had to work online. So we did an international conference on these themes that you see here. And they became our main strands of investigation. Making with, multi-species communication and co-creation, living technologies, living environments, humans, machines, intelligence, life, and emotions. Sensorium, how we experience, interpret, and develop applied aesthetics today. This last point was mainly a theme for our art theoretician. I forgot to mention her, but she also kind of supported the project by reflecting on these things. Next, yeah. Maria Castellanos, a Spanish artist, was working with plants, so she was making with. And this project she developed during her stay with us. She was a resident researcher for 2 years. And the project is called Other Intelligences. What she did was she set up a worldwide network of plants, and the plants had communication tools to communicate across the internet. I think it was 25 plants and there's a little video here now to explain it to you, if you go to the next. Here you see the activators. They would move when the plant received a signal. This is the central. There should be sound on this one. It was quite noisy, actually. I had one at home. It was, when it received something, it was going. Here you can hear some of the sound. So this was Maria Castellanos with Alberto Valverde, her partner. They set up this network and they collected, go back to the slide before again, this first one. They also did a lot of work with how to display the data, because they discovered that the plants rendered so much data about the communication that in itself became very interesting, and we were not aware that it would be interesting. In the beginning, we thought it would be fantastic if they managed to communicate, if they could send one to the other. But then Maria discovered that some plants were like falling in love or communicating a lot and very intensely for a while. And then they would stop communicating and then they would start again. And these patterns were so different that we started to use them for, or try to visualize them. As you see here, one example is on the video and the two other examples are prints, like graphic renderings. Yes, now we can go on past the video and to the next. Here, this is Hege Tapio, our PhD fellow, and she is still working. So she hasn't done the last part, but she is soon finishing, and she has gone from doing the National School of Artistic Research as her PhD education and gone into an academic hybrid program, which is PhD in Innovation for Sustainability, which we have in Oslo Met. So she's doing some, she's mixing artistic work with articles and essays. And I remember yesterday somebody was talking about the problematics of displaying and this kind of research. And of course it is a big it's a challenge, and you have to be quite brave to experiment with it. And Hege now says she's doing critical transcreations of living and machine systems. So she invented a kind of term for herself, transcreation. And she builds it on doing quite a lot of research on existing, what could we call it? Research on machines and effective technologies, maybe you could call it, you know, like face recognition and EKG measurements and all of the things you can do to try to see people's emotions or to find people's emotions. And then she transcreates something on top of that. And it is a critical view she has on all this. And she has also done curating as part of the work, looking into the futures of care. And that created a new connection that we were not aware of, that we have quite a strong relation now with health research, without doing health research ourselves. So let's go to the next slide now, giving you another context, the one that Lorella mentioned. This is Oslofjord Ecologies, which is a project that has been going on since 2016. This is 2020, when we made this book. I thought that this would be the end, but it was just a new start for the whole thing. The Oslofjord is the local ocean to where I live, and it is in a very bad state ecologically, and it's not getting any better. And we got a new report just at the same time as the book was released, that now it was worse than ever, and it is forbidden to fish for cod. Yeah. So that, yeah, it's really bad. So that happened, and since then we have continued, but the Oslofjord work have had new iterations, so to speak. You can download the book for free. It's 15 artists and scientists and humanistic researchers and some presentations of artistic works as well in it. And just to remind also of something that was kind of floating in the Oslofjord, and that's Felix Guattari's essay from the 1980s, in fact, about the three ecologies. He talks about the mental, the social, and the environmental as parallel strands that all needs to be there. So let's go to the... He's on the next. Yeah, yeah. This one is some of the background for the installation Ocean Connections. I think we can just pass it quite fast. Very important was to find ways to represent forces or phenomena of the waterways that we cannot register with human senses. So that's exactly what you were talking about, Lorella. Because I was looking for something to make the Oslofjord a protagonist, as a subjective. And I found it in, if you go to the next slide. No, sorry, back, one more, back. This one. The image to the left is a mathematical modeling done by a Spanish PhD candidate at the time. His name is Guillermo Garcia Sanchez, and he is using something called Lagrangian descriptor. And it is a formula to mathematically model what is happening in the sea. It is three-dimensional pathways that moves through the waterways. It is not what we see on the surface. Even so, it is fundamental to life in the sea, because an organism cannot cross the white line. They will have to follow the white line. So they are like highways of the sea. And it goes for larger animals as well, as they will have to follow the small ones to have something to eat. And it goes for contamination, oil spill, all kinds of problematic matter as well. So we started the project together, and Guillermo helped me to model what was going on in the Oslofjord. And we got Evangelos Vukovalas, an environmental engineer, to work with us. And the whole project was supported by the SciArt project in Ispra, here in Italy. It is the joint research center of European Commission that have this fantastic project with, I think we were 10 to 15 artists who were invited to work with them over a period of 2 years.
5 minutes left.
That's perfect. So I would like to show you now just a small, remember this modeling, and then you see on the right the contour of the Oslofjord, the ugly duckling, as we named her. And next, please. And next. Here you will see in a video rendering of how these patterns, how the Lagrangian descriptor acts in the image. So here I have some material, some data, and then I animate it and use it. In the beginning, I was really nervous to do this and show it to the scientists afterwards. I couldn't sleep at night. I thought, oh, they're going to say that I'm so stupid and I can't do this. But they didn't. They liked it. And they helped me kind of formulate it. So it became a kind of storytelling vessel. And I wasn't alone in telling the stories. I had the scientist guys, but I also had marine biologists who helped me investigate another theme that was important here, and that was the history of biodiversity. Since the cod was out of the Oslofjord in my time, I started to think about, and what has happened before? The tuna fish disappeared in 1920. And many other animals and have disappeared, and I discussed this again with other scientists, and they said you never know what will happen. Invasive species come and they go. 5% of all invasive species will not like it where they are, and they will thrive and they will change the situation. So let's see the last part. This is an illustration from it's a video also. So it's an illustration from an installation of this work that was done earlier this month in Brussels. It's not playing? Yeah, now it's playing.
The two channel video installation.
Yes, it's two channels, and they are
In the corner.
yeah, in a corner, mounted in a corner, and they are in sync, so they are telling a story together. And one side is the larger story over time and the other side is more of details, micro life, and deposits, different deposits of waste and pollution. So that was the illustration of that. It is we really need a big room and a lot of things to show it properly. But anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you so much to Christine for her talk. And now we have our guest speaker for the second lecture is Antonio Somaini, who is a professor of film, media, and visual culture theory at the University Sorbonne Nouvelle in Paris, and a senior member of the Institut Universitaire de France with a 5-year research project on the impact of the AI technologies and on images, visual culture, and contemporary artistic practices. He has been visiting professor at Harvard and Yale, and is currently the chief curator of the exhibition The World Through AI, which will be soon opened at the Jeu de Paume Museum in Paris. Among his recent publications, the contribution to the questionnaire on art and machine learning, just published by the journal October, and among his previous publications, we recall the book Culture Visuelle, I hope my French is good, Culture Visuelle, Images, Regards, Médias, Dispositifs, co-authored with Andrea Pinotti in 2022 and edited by Presses du Ril, published by Presses du Ril, is a French editing house. And being a theorist and a researcher, Somaini's work provides a significant framework for understanding the rapidly evolving landscape of visual culture in an age increasingly defined by artificial intelligence. Indeed, today, contemporary generative artificial intelligence in art, photography, cinema, literature, and music arouse amazement, fear, enthusiasm, or skepticism, and are developing at an accelerated speed in all areas of culture and science. So please welcome Antonio Somaini to the microphone to feed the knowledge in this field.
Thank you very much, Lorella Scacco. Thanks also to Nicoletta Leonardi and Domenico Quaranta for the invitation. Very happy to be here in Milan, my city, even though I'm now based in Paris. And yeah, so I'm going to talk about this work I've been doing for a few years now on the impact of AI technologies on images, visual culture, and artistic practices in domains such as video art, photography, installations, and so on. And this is a research project that I do as a scholar, but on the side, I'm also working as a curator. And if you show the next slide, you can see the announcement of this exhibition I'm currently curating for the Jeu de Paume Museum in Paris, opening in just a few days on April 11th and staying open until September 21st, entitled in French Le Monde selon l'IA, and in English The World Through AI. Why did we choose this title? Because there's a heightened awareness now for some time that AI technologies, AI algorithms and models are infiltrating all layers of culture and society. They are really being more and more embedded in all areas, essentially, of culture, society, economics, finance, technology, and of course also military operations. And what I was interested in was to explore, analyze the way in which artists have been reacting to this increasing presence of AI across our culture. Sometimes embracing these technologies as new media through which to create or modify or circulate new texts, new images. In other cases, to develop strategies to counter these technologies, to somehow protect oneself from their often invasive presence. In other cases as well, strategies to appropriate these technologies, transform them, and reorient them towards goals that are not the ones for which they were conceived at the beginning. And in doing work on this topic, I first felt, of course, the necessity to understand what we mean by AI today, because AI is a term that was introduced in the 1950s, 1955 to be precise, and it's been evolving steadily since then with meanings and discourses and ideologies surrounding it that have continuously changed. Today, by AI, we mean a series of learning algorithms and models after going through a phase of training, can perform a whole series of more and more complex operations, such as generating texts, summarizing other texts, generating, modifying, circulating images, and so on. We see their impact all around us. At the same time, they have a tendency to somehow become more and more discrete and sometimes invisible. They operate sometimes at levels that defy our perceptual space, our visibility. That is why images today, at this present historical moment, play a very, very important role, because images are like the surface, the visible surface onto which the impact of AI on culture at large becomes visible, becomes perceivable, and can also be discussed and negotiated. And images are really being heavily transformed by AI technologies. Algorithms are now embedded in the cameras of our smartphones, and each image, each photograph we take is not a single capture of what's in front of the lens. It's actually the result of a series of algorithmic operations, and sometimes also the result of the merging of many, many different images together. AI algorithms and models, as you all know, through platforms such as Midjourney, ChatGPT, Firefly, and so on, allow us to generate new images, or to take some images as a starting point and then modify them. We can produce still and moving images. There's more and more models like Sora, Gen 3 by Runway ML that allow to produce videos through prompts and so on. So it's the entire field of visual culture, of even artistic practices that is either transformed by these technologies or given the possibility to use them and to do something with them. And studying all these transformations, all these phenomena, I came to realize that there was a new entity, a new mathematical complex entity that was somehow infiltrating more and more our culture, and that needed to really be tackled from the point of view of both visual culture theory, but I would say cultural theory in general. And this entity are so-called latent spaces, la numero 4. Latent space, yeah, numero 4. Oh, sorry, I have a different, so go back, number 3. So latent spaces. This is a term that up until just a few years ago was circulating only in the field of computer science. And now I think should be kind of part of our common language when we talk about what's happened to culture today. Very much like terms such as database started to circulate in the humanities already 20, 30 years ago. What are latent spaces? Latent spaces are complex mathematical spaces made of data points indicated by vectors, long lists of numbers, within which once they are fully trained, the generative AI models encode and position all the images, all the texts that they were trained with. Let's take as an example ChatGPT, for example. The reason why ChatGPT can generate images from prompts is because during the phase of trainings, billions and billions of connected images and texts have been transformed into vectors and then positioned within this abstract space. We can take as an example, if you go to the slide number 9. Yeah, that's it. We can try to imagine latent space on the basis of a three-dimensional traditional space. In this space, every entity has 3 coordinates, usually x, y, and z, indicating height, width, and depth. And every object existing in our three-dimensional space can somehow be identified, positioned through these coordinates. Now, a latent space of a generative AI models, instead of having just 3 dimensions, it may have hundreds or thousands of dimensions. It is impossible to perceive it, impossible to imagine it. You can imagine it as a sort of huge matrix of numbers. But within this multidimensional space, every point indicated by all these coordinates can be somehow reached through different techniques, such as, for example, prompts, writing a prompt, and can be visualized in the form of either a still image, or if one visualizes many connected data points, one can generate moving images. So basically, when we operate, any one of us today, with generative AI models, we do somehow explore these latent spaces, and we try to extract, visualize elements out of them. These can be texts, can be images, can be sounds, can be voices, can be different connections between them. So latent spaces are now this kind of invisible but still very important presence across our culture. And what I found out by exploring the field of contemporary art, reacting to the presence of AI, is that artists, many artists, were really thinking about how to deal with the presence of these spaces, how to deal with the fact that they are essentially inaccessible, invisible, opaque, and can only be explored kind of blindly through writing prompts and inserting images, and see where they end up, which areas of latent spaces they end up somehow activating. And I discovered that artists are developing different strategies to tackle them. And if we go to slide number 21, you can. I would like to present to you different artistic approaches to this entity. But first, sorry, before slide 21, go to slide number 17, numero 17. Scusa, la numero 17 un istante. Latent spaces in many ways today play a role that is somehow similar to the ones that traditional libraries have played. Libraries have been traditionally a site for the storing, the ordering of cultural contents, giving possibility to a public to reach them, find them, transform them, and elaborate new contents. Libraries have been places where vast areas of cultural production and cultural memory were encoded and given in a way to the public to be transformed. Now, latent spaces, in a way, operate similarly to libraries in the sense that they absorb enormous quantities of cultural production and cultural memory that is stored on the internet and transform them into code, into numbers, into data points, and allow then the public to generate new cultural productions out of them. The huge difference with libraries, though, is that the cultural contents that have been placed into latent space are not accessible as such. They are transformed into data points that can be processed, but this space is actually, we don't have a map, we don't have a full catalog, we don't have a way to explore it in a transparent way. But the role in the processing of culture is actually quite similar in many ways. Now, how are artists engaging with latent spaces? Now we can go back to 21. There's different strategies. And one of them, let me visualize the slides myself. The first one consists, slide 22. La prossima. See? The first one is to produce autonomous latent spaces, to find ways to use generative AI models that are not necessarily the ones that are commercialized, ChatGPT, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Firefly, Gemini, and so on, but somehow construct smaller latent spaces using models, for example, such as GANs, generative adversarial networks, and exerting at least some kind of control on the kinds of images that may be produced. The second strategy, prossima, is to instead use the commercially available latent spaces, the ones of the companies or models I just mentioned, and to try to explore them in non-standard ways. Try to dodge the limits, the obstacles, the blind spots, the forbidden areas of these latent spaces, and try to visualize images that are not expected, not the standard cliché stereotype images that you often get. The third strategy, prossima, is to try to influence future latent spaces, is to try to release across the internet images that will somehow transform the latent space produced by the models of the future. And the fourth strategy is to treat latent space as sort of archives within which vast quantities of culture have been encoded, and out of which one can, for example, re-explore the past and extract images that talk about other possible pasts, counterfactual histories, fictional memories, and so on. Let me give you now briefly some example of these different artistic practices. If we go to slide 26, the first strategy, as I said, is to produce autonomous latent spaces. Now go to slide 35. And this is, for example, what has done a famous contemporary artist and theorist who is working a lot with AI for a few years now, Hito Steyerl, in a series of installations that started, yeah, you can put it full screen, maybe it's better. But then you don't see the number. Okay, allora lascialo così. In a series of installations that she started producing in 2018 and then continues up to today, she used models such as GANs that allowed her to train AI with images she had herself selected and then use them in installations such as this one called This is the Future, which was presented for the first time at the Venice Biennial in 2019. And in that installation, Hito Steyerl develops a whole reflection on the use of AI as a form of prediction and about how so many forms of financial, social, political predictions today are made by AI models. But one of the peculiar aspects of her work is that she really trained the model with her own image. And as we can see in another slide, which is the number 36, In one of her latest work, this is called Animal Spirits, she described her own role as latent space architecture and path making, meaning that her role as an artist is to try to construct the architecture of a latent space and to trace paths within it, trajectories within it, meaning regain control, regain agency onto these models instead of using completely pre-constituted, prefabricated models. Now, another strategy is, you go to slide 37, is the one, as I said, of exploring in non-standard ways the existing latent spaces. In this case, you take whatever model is at hand. You know that this model has its own cliché, its own tendency. If you go to the next slide, the artist I'm talking about, Prossima slide, for example, decided to use the model Lexica, which is basically a version of Stable Diffusion. And as you can see from the very opening page, that is the kind of image that the model by itself would produce, the kind of cliché, standard, stereotyped, repetitive, kitsch images. But through very careful working with the prompts, you can steer away from these cliches and you can go find areas of latent space in which you find completely different images. If you go to the next slide, this artist, whose name is Eric Bulot, developed a whole project which he calls Le Cinéma Vivant, Living Cinema, in which he tries to visualize a series of kind of utopias about what cinema might have become that were formulated in the 1920s and 30s by writers, artists belonging to the surrealist movements, the symbolist movement, and so on. And he somehow tries to give visual shape to these ideas that remained on paper, never found its visual actual concretization, but can today be visualized, at least hypothetically, through a kind of non-standard use of generative AI models. Now, yes, I know, I have my chronometer here. Now let's go to slide 46. And here we have the third possible strategy, which is to try to influence the latent spaces of the future. And here, if you go to the next slide, we find the work of two artists whose work I think today is extremely important, Holly Herndon and Matt Dryhurst, two artists who comes from the field of music and who in the last few years have developed very, very interesting projects aiming towards a new kind of collective, open, transparent AI, an AI based on consensus, on the use of images that are either free of copyright or freely given by artists, on the sharing, on the revenues produced by the models, and so on. In one of their projects, which has this strange title of Xeri Mutants, they decided to try to influence future latent spaces. They first analyzed, next slide, how the image of Holly Herndon is mostly represented across the media, noticed that she often appears like this, and the current latent spaces of AI models have understood her image in this way, and decided to elaborate a model. If you go 2 slides next, a prompt text-to-image model that generates large quantities of exaggerated version of this cliché. And by doing this, and by having these images present on the website of the museum where this was presented, the Whitney Museum, they hope that the latent spaces of tomorrow, which will be trained, including these images, will somehow contain a new representation of Holly Herndon that they managed to somehow influence. So this is to say, one of the things that we can do is either, of course, create our own model, but we can also try to release a lot of images across the internet in specific places and hope that these images will influence the way in which we're portrayed by generative AI models. Now let's go to the last slide, which is 53. And this is the idea of using latent spaces as so-called meta-archives, using latent spaces as huge systems of data points in which large quantities of our cultural memory have been encoded, turned into data points, and can be processed and transformed. And this means that we can use latent spaces not so much to pre-visualize the future, but somehow to rethink the past, to go back to history, go back to archives, collections, and so on, and try to visualize not the things that have happened and have been stored and preserved, but the things that might have happened, the things that could have happened. There's a very, very nice term coined by a German filmmaker, next slide, Alexander Kluge, in his last book. Imagine this filmmaker at 93 years old, he's beginning to use AI to test it after a very, very, very long career in documentary filmmaking. The book exists also in English, but the English title is less nice than the German title. The German title says der Konjunktiv der Bilder, il congiuntivo delle immagini. And what he says is that the images we find through generative AI are images in the subjunctive mode. Sono delle immagini al congiuntivo, delle immagini declinate secondo la coniugazione del come se fosse. Se questo fosse allora. So it's basically images that talk about hypotheticals, talk about possibilities, talk about alternative pasts, even possible alternative presents and so on. And there's lots of artists, including, for example, Gregory Chatonsky. If we go to the slide number, let's say 58. Now my time is really over, so I don't have the time to go into it, but Chatonsky developed a whole project for the city of Le Havre in France. The project is called La Ville qui n'existait pas, the city that did not exist. And for this project, he trained an AI model with images of the photographic archive of Le Havre, and then tried to use AI to imagine other possible histories of Le Havre. A Le Havre which could have been, but was not. And so this is, I think, one of the most interesting possibilities opened up, and it shows how artists are reacting along many, many different strategies to the presence of this entity, latent space, which was confined in computer science departments up until not long ago, and now is exerting its agency, its presence all across our culture. Thank you.
So thank you so much for this captivating talk by Antonio Somaini that, as I told you, question answers at the end of our three lecturers' speeches. And thank you so much, Antonio, for your talk. And now, for the third talk, we welcome Alessandro Bonizzoni, who is a member of the Fosbury Architecture Collective Studio based in Milano and founded in 2013 by Giacomo Ardesio, Alessandro Bonizzoni, that he's with us, Nicola Campri, Veronica Caprino, and Claudia Mainardi, that they are all 5 architects collaborating together. Fosbury Architecture approaches architecture as a tool to mediate between collective and individual needs, sustainability and pragmatism, and environment and humanity, dedicated to expanding the boundaries of this field. Of course, we are talking about architecture from the field of the architecture. Fosbury Architecture addresses urban strategies, adaptive reuse, temporary installations, publication, exhibitions, curatorial work, and education. So they have really an interdisciplinary approach. They are a new generation of spatialists, as they say in Italian, we could say spazialisti, that embraces the opportunity of leveraging design to challenge social conditions. In addition, they employ transdisciplinary approaches to push architecture into unexplored territories. Fosbury Architecture has participated in major biennales, such as Lisbon in 2019, Versailles, again the same year, Chicago in 2017, and Venice in 2016. Among their latest efforts, we recall the work in 2023 when Fosbury Architecture curated the Italian pavilion at the 18th Venice Architecture Biennale with a project titled Spaziale, Everyone Belongs to Everyone Else, which will be the topic of Bonizzoni's speech. And we are very happy to hear about this project. And now the stage is yours.
Thanks a lot for the invitation. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here today. Thanks a lot for the introduction, for the long introduction. Sorry, I will turn a bit my back to you because I have to follow the slides. Next, please. Thank you, Antonio. So this is us. Today you only see me, but that's the collective. We are a collective of design and research, founded in 2013 and active for 12 years now. To be honest, that's not our office, and we don't dress like that usually. Next, thanks. So 2 years ago, we were appointed, as already mentioned, curator of the Italian Pavilion at the Venice Biennale of Architecture. And just to give you a bit the context of the exhibition we designed and we defined, we curated, so to say, to make the long story short, we, as architects, we are trained thinking that architecture is the solution. We are taught in that direction. And usually this solution, this architectural solution, has the shape of a box in concrete. Bad news is that we are not just promoter of solution, but we are also part of the problem. The construction sector, just in Italy, is wasting 2.2 square meter of terrain a second. The construction sector in a global scale produces 39% of the CO2, exploit 36% of electricity, 33% of water, drinking water, and is accountable for the use of the 50% of raw material extraction. So we have to face our part in the future challenge. That's the essence. Good news is that we strongly believe that there's a new generation of architects, and it's the generation we try to showcase at the Biennale that's acting in a new way, sorry. Let's call them native sustainable. And we think that they operate with a more gentle, ethic and empathic approach toward architecture. Next. So the aim was to show those practices that, in our opinion, were already accepting the challenge to do a kind of a paradigm shift, or to start a sort of paradigm shift in our profession. Next. And we, as curator, we decided to make this paradigm shift evident by reframing a bit the curatorship. And so for the very first time in history of the Italian Pavilion, the pavilion became an investor, active investor in the project. So we moved quite a big amount of money out of the pavilion in Venice toward the 9 projects that we promoted. Next. And we pushed for long-lasting projects, not just connected to the 6 months exhibition, in a way to transform the amount of money used in an investment. Next. Yeah, next, please. So today I will only go through, or I will give you a glimpse of the 9 projects we involved, but I'm very happy to show them the entire ecosystem we gathered together in Venice. Next. So we invited the 9 groups, 9 practitioners in the field of architecture, all Italian. That's the mission of the Italian Pavilion, of course. The average age was 33 years. It's an insane data for the Italian Pavilion. Next. That's a group. And you will see in focus 3 of them. Next, please. And we paired them with 9 professionals belonging to the vast field of creativity in order to enhance the project and to make them a sort of evident transdisciplinary product. Next. So we invited a performer, festival, movie director, artist and pedagogist. Roberto Flore is one of the most influential chefs regarding the food transition. Bruno Zamburlini is an AI researcher. Claudia is a writer, so creative in a wider sense. Next. We selected 9 spots in Italy. Next. From Taranto to Florence. Next. And of course, to root the project, we contacted the community as well as incubators that were helping the groups to develop their projects. Next. That's just an idea, but we involved something like 60 associations at the end. Next. So first project, that was somehow an inspiration to what we did, because we not only implemented the projects from scratch, but we also incubated existing projects. In Taranto, the collective post-disaster from 2018 decided to activate the rooftop of the old city. Next. That's Taranto. The old town, it's crumbling, literally crumbling down. 17% of the buildings are abandoned. They told me that the Film Commission the Taranto Film Commission is presenting the town more like Kabul than as a Mediterranean city. So if you need to shoot a movie regarding the Middle East, that's a nice spot. There's also a movie on Netflix shoot in Taranto. And these guys, they occupy the rooftops. They are all flat tops. And they transform for a short time during the year those platforms into public space. Next. And for those who doesn't know, Taranto is a desperate and beautiful town. One of the most polluted towns in Europe, and that's the reason why it is so polluted. To the point that the United Nations declare the entire area, 20 kilometers around the town, sacrifice land. People cannot or shouldn't eat the food they grow there, to simplify the point. And from the rooftop, these guys, they contemplate the condition in which they live. There is a strange balance between the risk to lose job, because this massive factory is the job in town, and they have to negotiate the need for job with health. And so with the Italian Pavilion, we had the chance to invest money on the activation. This is the 4th episode. Next. That consisted in a week of activities. They started with kids. They involved kids. It's very difficult to involve kids in that town with a Tai Chi session. Next. Then the advisor. There is Silvia Calderoni and Ilenia Caleo. She's a well-known performer and activist. they performed, literally polluting themselves with those plastic bags filled up of strange things. And at the end, we did an open discussion with the citizens of Taranto. I'm also happy to say that next week in Taranto, there's going to be the 6th episode. So if by any chance you happen to be there, you are invited to visit the 6th activation. Next. Another project is related to the phenomenon of unfinished public buildings in Italy. It's a kind of an obsession for us. We published a book in 2018 about the topic. We are the best at doing unfinished public buildings in the world. Really, it's the Italian style. We mapped something like 700 unfinished buildings, Polo Stadium, 20 kilometers long highways ending nowhere, 12 dikes. They are beautiful, to be honest. That's my point of view. And while we were doing the mapping, we discovered this Nazca bird or starship landed in Ripatiatina. Next. Ripatiatina, it's a little village of 4,000 inhabitants in Abruzzo. Famous because it gave birth to the parents of Rocky Marciano, the boxer, who then became Rocky Balboa in the movie. And here we asked to HPO, that is a collective from Ferrara, a collective of architects, to work together with Claudia Durastanti and try to develop a project for this unfinished public building. Next. The Manufact, it's this nice thing here. 50 years ago, they built this building in the shape of an hospital. It was supposed to be a psychiatric hospital. Then nothing happened. The company failed, traditional story. Then they decided to transform it into a nursery. Nothing happened. Now they told us that they do satanic rituals sometimes. So that's the only function it's been hosting for the last 50 years. And but HPO next, the group we involved. Next slide, please. They did something, and that's insane because that's the very first time in Italian history that a building, an unfinished building, is reactivated as an unfinished building. So the guys took the money we gave them. Unfortunately, money, they are never enough. But they succeeded in producing a linear park. It's 500 long linear park made out of terrain, recycled terrain, and with an agora, a very little square, where they perform, they do meetings, they do, I mean, the municipality now, it's using the space as they wish. Next. And fun fact is that we did an official opening with politicians. Next. So here you see. And there was an inauguration day. So they cut the ribbon. There was the banda playing music. We were eating good food. And we were, for the very first time, we were discovering this building that was laying down in an amazing landscape with the Maiella on the background, the seaside nearby, olive trees, vineyard. So also, in a way, exploring and experimenting the beautiful landscape that was around. Next. Another project, again, with something like an unfinished building, but that's a quarter, it's an unfinished neighborhood in Catania, Librino. It's an infamous project by Kenzo Tange. Every time Kenzo Tange came to Italy, he produced strange master plans. That's one of them. it was unfinished, so that's why he came, he presented the project, the Catania, the municipality, started the quarter, they just built infrastructure and buildings, and they forgot of services and green spaces as usual in Italy. Today, Librino, it's the realm of drug dealers, but also a very lively neighborhood with the highest rate of birth in town. So it's full of kids, literally everywhere. But the problem they have, it's something simple, let's say trivial, but also delicate. They don't have shadows to hide from when it gets hot. That it's 6 months, a year now. And so we contacted an association that was dealing with the kids in the neighborhood, and we asked them, what do you need? And they said, shadow. And we said, okay, we will try to produce shadow. Next. And so we asked to the collective Ossidiana to design something very simple, a tent, a movable tent that then became part of the equipment of this association called Talita Cum. It's foldable, packable, they put it in the van and they bring it everywhere they need. In parallel, Adelita Usnibey, she's an artist, well-known artist and pedagogist. Next. She, together with the kids in the quarter, she developed a game, Gioco dell'Oca, something like the traditional game called the big game of Librino. The kids designed all the tiles that were then cut and sewed together to produce a big carpet. And I'm very happy to say that 2 days ago, the project by Adelita Usnibey became part of the collection of the Museum of the Novecento in Milan. She won the Acacia Prize of this year. And next, somehow most of the projects are going on, and that's what I like the most about the pavilion. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandro, for your talk. Very impressive, these interpretations in the cities and how they can give joy to the people who lives there. And so thank you so much to you all for these impressive lectures. And I shall now leave the floor for the debate. Any comments, any questions from you, from the public? In the meanwhile, maybe you are starting to think about it. I would like to give a question to Christine. We start from Christine, and I was very curious to know, what is your theoretical background? Can it be found by thinkers like Merleau-Ponty or Donna Haraway? Or do you also refer to new materialism and post-humanism in your research?
I think Donna Haraway has been very inspiring. Less new materialism, actually. But Donna Haraway has been a kind of well, we disagree on her in the group I've been working in. So we have discussed quite a lot some of the entanglement and symbiosis, the making with, that we are quite interested in. But actually, I've been very inspired by feminist film theory. about objectification of women, Laura Mulvey from the 70s, because I think we are doing something similar with nature.
Can you explain a little bit better this concept?
If you think about how nature is represented in the fantastic television programs by National Geographic, you see that everything is dramatic. It has a clear story. It has music even. You can see things that you can't really see if you were there. No, it's so many things about representation of nature that I think we need to think about as a culture to be able to change our attitude. And I think of objectification of women is still happening, but it is not okay the way it was in the 60s, I think. Not everyone agrees in that, but I think it's a kind of
Parallel.
it could be a parallel, or that's what I've started to think.
That's very interesting as a parallel that you made. Thank you for this. It's inspiring concept. So, is everyone wants to give to have a question for Christine, or can I? Don't be shy. No? Okay, or maybe the next one. And sì. Okay.
It's more a comment than a question, but looking at one of the last examples provided by Fosbury, it reminded me about In Computo Siciliano, which is a project in which you have been involved, no? As also the designer of the book In Computo Siciliano. And I'm mentioning it here because I think that project is a very good example of artistic research, which was born outside of the academia. It's, I don't know if you know the project, but it's a very brave move of taking something that came out because of political misbehavior, problems with budgets and so on, and turning it into a style, no? Saying the incomplete public projects can become the new style born in Italy. And that project generated documentation, generated discussions, initiatives, and so on, and acted as research. And also many examples provided by Antonio Somaini go in the same direction. Are projects born outside of the academia, outside of the field of artistic research, but that work as research, no? And since we are here to discuss this, I was wondering if any of you want to comment about this, no? Now that in Italy as artistic research starts to become established also within the academia, what we can do to not just to generate new outcomes, but also to try to bring in this wild artistic research that happens outside of it. Thank you.
Domenico.
Thank you, Domenico. Yeah, I think it's what is artistic research, sometimes called practice-based research, artistic-based practice, research-based practice, and so on, is, I think, one of the most exciting fields developing in recent years. In France, is called recherche-création. That's the term that they use. And in France, it's really developing a lot. Both in arts academy and in universities. There's new PhDs, new programs, and I'm involved in following some of these projects, supervising and so on. And I think that one of the most fascinating things is that there's no predetermined recipe for each one of these projects. In each case, the challenge is really to invent a form, to invent a way to develop these projects that combine these two aspects, an artistic expression, which may be literary, theatrical, performative, visual, and so on, and the theoretical research that goes with it. And I think that, yeah, it's really a very, very interesting field. Sometimes I see it may be difficult for, you know, artists or researchers to find the right equilibrium, the right balance between the two. And sometimes you see projects that are really, you know, are kind of lacking in one of the two components. The best ones is where the two processes really merge and produce something new and sometimes completely unexpected. I see projects starting with one idea, one form, and then turning into something completely different. So it's something that requires also a lot of flexibility on the part of institutions and academies and so on to accept them. But I'm totally for it. And in my way, I'm considering in a way my practice as a curator, as a researcher that not only writes or publishes, but also coordinates, organizes, conceives exhibitions as in a little bit a way, a form of recherche création in a certain way. But
yeah. No, thanks a lot for mentioning In Computo Siciliano, because somehow we grew up with them. I did my thesis on In Computo Siciliano, and I met Alterazioni Video, Andrea Masu, and we started a collaboration with them 14 years ago. And together we published in 2018 the book In Computo, The Birth of a Style. And when we tend to define ourselves a research-based practice, collective practice, but sometimes I ask myself, what do I mean with research-based? Because daily life is not that research-based sometimes, like a practitioner in architecture. Luckily, we have those kind of projects, like In Computo, that we follow together, we support. Alterazioni Video, that provides the research base. I mean, every time it's a long-term project, we can go back to that project with, let's say, a more relaxed agenda and schedule. And it's incredible how the connection between this long-term process and research and everyday practice, it influences in an insane way, I would say, our daily based practice. So it's over time it has become fundamental to keep this connection. So that's my answer in general when they ask me what's the research base. Those kind of projects that are essential.
Yeah, I'd like to comment a little also. I agree with what you are saying, but I think maybe we should be a bit clear about the institutional framework that, for instance, is a frame for having a PhD in artistic research and this kind of thing. But that doesn't mean that that's the only place where artistic research takes place. I find myself very often in environments where there are no academic framework, but where the artistic practice is very much research-based. So I think that's, as you said, it has to do with what is artistically interesting in this time. And I also think that since we have all of these really wicked problems, it is like an urge to get together with different kinds of knowledge and different kinds of people and different environments to see how our perspectives can kind of change or grow or give us solutions that we didn't see before or even new questions.
Okay, thank you to all of you. And I have also a curiosity about the exhibition that Antonio is going to open in a few days, so in 1 month in a way, in 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And this exhibition, The World Through AI, at the Jeux de Paume in Paris, I would like to know what were your criteria for choosing the exhibiting artists? The selection was only the one who was using artificial intelligence or other type of criteria?
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a longer process because the actual work on the exhibition lasted less than 1.5 years, but it's based on years of research before. And I really looked at many things. What I was looking for, together with the associate curators, because I am the chief curator, but there's also 3 colleagues, so it was very much a collective discussion and so on, was projects that had a critical approach to AI. And by critical, I don't mean necessarily negative, but I mean reflected. It's not just, you know, a kind of technophilic display of what certain algorithms can do, but it's really about what it means for these algorithms and models to be infiltrating our cultures and societies at all levels, and all the kind of the epistemological, the political issues, the societal issues that they raise. In some cases, the artists we have selected use actually AI models for the work. In others, they produce sculptures, diagrams, images made even with techniques like cyanotypes, or but that somehow comment on AI. For example, we have 2 very large diagrams by this researcher called Kate Crawford, who wrote an important book, Atlas of AI, which I think is also translated in Italian. And she's been working with a Serbian designer called Vladan Joler, designer, researcher, and produced these huge diagrams that tries to propose critical cartographies of AI, both in space and in time. And one of the diagrams was actually on view. That's where I saw it for the first time at the Osservatorio Fondazione Prada 2 years ago. It's called Calculating Empires, and it tries to visualize 500 years of histories of technologies, forms of knowledge, and so on, that somehow led to the current state of AI. So this is a work that does not use any AI itself, but it's about AI. And so I would say that, yeah, the selection was based on approaches that had a critical dimension. Of course, it was also a very difficult selection because the museum is big, but once you start, you know, seeing how many interesting things there are, you quickly realize that you cannot have everything you would love. So it was also a series of painful decisions and sometimes compromises. But we're glad to, for example, to be presenting 10 brand new works, including, for example, a new big installation by Hito Steierl. So there's going to be some discoveries to be made. So I hope that sooner or later, it's about 30 contemporary artists, and then we will have a series of, we call them time capsules, like vitrines that contain objects, devices, images stemming from other historical moments that create a kind of genealogical, archaeological counterpoint to the contemporary works. The contemporary works are all from the last 10 years, but these vitrines all of a sudden show that some recent phenomena have contacts with previous ones. To give you an example, we try to understand how one could imagine a history of prompts. These object prompts that everybody is talking about for the last 2 years didn't almost exist in common language 2 years before. So in what ways prompts refer to a whole history of relations between images and words? Or how does machine vision technology refer to other historical moments of attempts to automatize visual perception? Ranging from the 1920s to other moments in the 20th century. So we have these moments that do a kind of historical focus, but most of the itinerary is really very, very recent work. Thank you. I hope it is as nice as it sounds, but we'll see when it's.
And also, I hope to be able to come to Paris to visit it. Yeah. And I have another question for Alessandro. And yes, I am also curious to know about the next project from Fosbury Architecture. Which is your next plans? What are you working now? Which is your next event or program? So what are you doing now?
Nice question. I still have to understand what's. Yeah, I have a big list. No, we are very lucky because we opened the collective in a group of 8. Then we shrink a bit, but we are 5. So. And we are all architects, but everyone has his own inclination, so we can split, separate, and we can follow different process and different projects, also depending on our inclination or expertise, let's call it. So we are always working on many things. In terms of research, we are about to republish the catalog about the unfinished public buildings, because it was a bestseller at a certain point, second in the list of Amazon books after Adolf Loos. So we are about to do that. We are now, this year, we are representative of the an European initiative that it's called House Europe. And House Europe, it's a ECE initiative, so we are collecting signatures in all around Europe, and we are trying to do that in Italy. And it's about implementing policies to push for renovation instead of demolition. So I would say that this year, all together, the 5 of us, we will work in that direction, apart from the many projects of installation, curatorship, small curatorship we have, but we will never reach 1 million signatures. That's the standard, but we are trying to shake the thing. So we will try our best to raise awareness about the topic.
Thank you, Alessandro. And any questions? Okay. Yes.
Thank you very much. I want to ask for Professor Antonio. You talked about this AI generated image. What do you think about with some complex multiple dimensional calculations? Yeah, what do you think about artistic research with AI? As we know, the internet changed our world for almost 20 years. How should we be prepared for the future of the next changes? So, as we know, AI has some divergent thinking. I think is also the thinking of transdisciplinary. So, yeah, the question is, how do we be prepared for this? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. I think that at the present moment is extremely difficult to have any forecast concerning the future in this field, because things are changing at an incredible pace, not only in the US, but we see, for example, the recent release of the Chinese model DeepSeek that opened up a whole new perspective on this. The possibility, perhaps, if the information released by the Chinese makers of these models are true, the possibility of training models which much fewer resources, consumption of energy, cost, and so on. So it's a shifting field in which we can kind of understand what's ahead in the next maybe 6 months, maybe a year, but it's very difficult unless you are working for OpenAI inside their lab to really foresee what's coming. But the first thing to do, I think, is to, first of all, I think we should stop maybe talking about AI in general as this kind of mysterious entity, because actually what is happening is really a multiplicity of many different models, many different algorithms, all of which have different properties, all of which do different things. And there's a great divide right now between models that are somehow closed. You use them, but like ChatGPT, but you cannot enter into them, you cannot alter them, you cannot somehow own them and transform their parameters, and models who instead are released in open access and do give users a much higher degree of agency. I think that's a big divide, even a political one, because if I, for example, decide to generate images with the ChatGPT, I really have to work hard to try to stay away from the tendency, the inherent tendencies of the model, and push it towards other areas. I also face the fact that if I write certain words, the model will refuse to generate the images, the phenomenon of the so-called banned prompts, certain images won't become visible. So if I use a pre-constituted closed model, I use something that is given to me with a lot of boundaries, limitations, blind spots, forbidden areas, and so on and so on. Instead, if I use an open source model, I have much more freedom to, I mean, always relative, because these models are also black boxes that are impossible to complete, to map in a complete way, but I have more agency. So that's a big political divide. And I think that the first thing to do is to, all of us, is really to acquire a certain literacy in understanding how they work, how they are trained, how they operate. That's the first thing to do, just very much like my generation had to do back in the early 90s in learning what the whole digital area of the digital media was. And we had to learn new terms, software, hardware, database, website, the things that today are part of the ABC of our language, but that then were not at all the case. So literacy is fundamental, understanding that it is not one big monster, but many different things. And then also be aware of the political and environmental implications of this. He was talking about architecture being at the same time the solution and the problem. AI perhaps one day will be the solution to the problem of climate change, perhaps. For the moment, it is a huge problem. The new models consume ginormous quantities of water, natural resources. The environmental impact for the moment is disastrous. Just know that one simple query, one simple prompt into ChatGPT consumes between 10 and 30 times a Google search. And we're all quickly moving from the Google search to the ChatGPT query or whatever model you use. So the political impact is also terrible. Look at what use is being made of AI in the US right now. They're using AI to target documents all over the federal agencies that contain certain terms like gender, environment, but also the term woman, or even the term historically. For some mysterious reason, if these models find those terms, the documents are erased. It's like a Orwellian scenario unfolding under our eyes. And so we need to be aware of this, and we need to understand it and try to counter it somehow. So that's my first. Beyond that, beyond knowing what's going to happen in 6 months, I think it's really impossible. It's very difficult, and I certainly don't have enough,
Okay, thank you, Antonio, for the answer. So, any other question, comment on the speeches of our guest? Nobody? Okay, if no one else has anything else to say, I think we can conclude our session of seminar. And thank you so much for your really impressive lectures, and thank you to you for your listening and for your passion to follow all the talks. So I think it would be nice to have again. Okay, we have 10 minutes of pause, and then we start the seminar of Johan Harberg.
Scusatemi, qui continuiamo subito con la closing keynote, non c'è una pausa caffè, quindi la sessione termina all'1, ok? Quindi stiamo iniziando subito la prossima sessione, ok? Perdiamo un sacco di tempo.
Vediamo questo. Questo. Hello? I invited the audience to start sitting down for the last session. If you can come in and sit down or just get out if you are leaving, please. Very happy to welcome on stage Johan Harberg. Johan Harberg has an extensive expertise in shaping framework conditions for higher arts education, artistic research, and quality enhancement procedures. Educated in philosophy and public law, he has significantly contributed to the development of artistic research and institutional strategies. From 2009 to 2013, he served as director of the Norwegian Artistic Research Program, a nationally founded cross-disciplinary organization designed to promote artistic research within higher arts education in Norway. This initiative is now integrated into the Norwegian Directorate for Higher Education and Skills. Previously, Harberg was director of the Bergen National Academy of the Arts, now part of the University of Bergen. He was vice president and treasurer for the Society of Artistic Research, SAR, from 2014 to 2018, and has served as SAR executive officer since 2018. I thought it was important to mention this because John is here as a representative of SAR and as the coordinator of the research catalog, which is this amazing platform for sharing artistic research. That will be the subject of a workshop this afternoon at 2:30 p.m. I think we are concluding these 2 days, and I think that something that came out quite clearly is that on the one side, artistic research, as all art, is some kind of wild beast, and this is the nice thing about it. Now that all over Europe and finally also in Italy, it's starting to become also an institutional framework, is I think very important to maintain this framework, this freedom, this wilderness. And that's why I think it's very important and valuable the work that people like Giovanna Cassese yesterday, John today, Leonella Caprioli also are doing in engaging a difficult but fundamental dialogue with the policymakers, because they are aware of the subject and probably they are the ones that will help us not turning this institutional framework into a cage. So I'm very happy to give the word to Johan for his keynote lecture. Thank you. Yeah, you can use that.
So, first of all, can you hear me? Yeah. So,
now you hear me? Okay, let's see. So again, thank you very much for the invitation. A special thanks to Domenico and Nicoletta, and not at least to Allegra who had a lot of patience with me in the preparations. So I'm going to talk about 5 issues. I'll make some sort of basic statements regarding artistic research and higher arts education institutes. I'm going to talk about the creation of the Vienna Declaration and the proposed changes to the Frascati Manual and why this is important. I'll have I want a new focus on referencing within artistic research. So I'll say a little bit about that. And I will give you a short glimpse. You cannot hear me.
Can you speak closer to the
Yeah.
microphone, maybe?
No, I'll try. Yeah, is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I will also give you a short glimpse into the research catalog, the main provider for artistic research outputs. So as I said yesterday, I can agree with the basic statements by Giovanna on what research should and must do and what arts can provide. But when it comes to her statement that research is research, in my view, in principle, there is a yes. But unfortunately, when it comes to artistic research, it is a no. And I'll return to that. And maybe also quite important to state here, because it's not obvious, I think, for everybody, is that the basis for all research in all disciplines is that it should move the borderline of that discipline to reach the cutting edges of that discipline. And that is valid for medicine, chemistry, archaeology, any discipline, and that will also be the thing that is valid for the arts and artistic research. That is not always quite understood, and maybe in some cases it's also so that the interdisciplinary activity gets in the forefront, but I still think that artistic research are still young, and it needs to be aware of this, main aim for the research activities. So we can take the first slide. I hope. Yes. So here is my starting point. Artistic research is research that stems from the artistic practice and provide knowledge, insights that can only be obtained through that artistic practice. This is for me the absolute basis. I could say that for those of you who knows German, the word Erkenntnis, I think, is quite a good word for what actually is on stake in artistic research. It doesn't really transfer into English. Insights is the closest we can get to the way. But this means that although, yes, knowledge has been produced to a certain degree within the arts over a long, long time, artistic research has a much shorter history. But the fact that it stems from the practice also means that it deviates from the long tradition of research on the arts. And then I think it's also important to say that this is not yet realized by all higher artist institution educations. So we take the next. But in this situation, as we are now, no university of higher educational institutions will survive without a teaching and learning platform based on active research. And this observation is equally applicable to any institutions within the arts or the higher arts EE as it's put out here. So, and then again, with what I said before, when artistic research stems from that practice, it is vital that the output becomes relevant for the peers in that field, in a relevant format for that peers. And there is many places, maybe actually not so much here, as from I heard yesterday, optimistically, but there is a risk that what constitutes artistic research methods, formats, and outputs are defined by scholars from the humanities and not by the artists. And this is something I think you need to be very aware of and keep in mind when you actually start forming your artistic research programs. Then we take the next slide. So the last of this maybe basics is that there is something that needs to be shared in a systematic and articulated way that are relevant to your peers. And from at least my experience, it does mean that it demands a shift in culture, moving away from a certain well-established degree of privatization that exists within, we say, an artistic culture. And this willingness to share, I think, is fundamental for the understanding of moving from an old, more pupil-master situation and into a culture based on research. And this means also that the artistic research has to be the main focus for our higher arts educations. And students must be enabled to understand how to conduct artistic research, and exposure to artistic research processes is the thing that makes it possible for them to understand. Next one. So, this consortium met for the first time in Vienna in 2019. And we can take the next slide as well. And over the last 5 years, the Society for Artistic Research has worked together with the European League of Institutes of the Arts, ELIA, the Association Européenne des Conservatoires, IAC, and other international umbrella organizations within the higher arts education and the cultural sector to manifest and secure recognition for artistic research within Europe and beyond. The latest step in this work is the creation of the Artistic Research Alliance, founded by these partners in September 24. And then we take the next. So the first milestones in this work are represented by the creation of the Vienna Declaration on Artistic Research. And I realize that you cannot really read this very well, so we go to the next one. So here are the basic statements from the Vienna Declaration. Artistic research is practice-based, practice-led research in the arts, which has developed rapidly in the last 20 years globally and is a key knowledge base for art education in higher arts education institutions. Next one. The Vienna Declaration is intended as a policy document addressing political decision makers, funding bodies, higher education and research institutions, as well as other organizations and individuals catering for and undertaking artistic research. Next one. Artistic research is research through means of high-level artistic practice and reflection. It is an epistemic inquiry directed towards increasing knowledge, insight, understanding, and skills. Within this frame, artistic research is aligned in all aspects with the 5 main criteria that constitutes research and development in the Frascati manual. And artistic research is undertaken in all art practice disciplines, including architecture, design, film, photography, fine art, media, digital arts, music, and the performing arts. And it achieves its results both within those disciplines as well as often in a transdisciplinary setting, combining artistic research methods with methods from other research traditions. So then, what does the Vienna Declaration, we can have the next one, please. And what is it not? So it does provide, you see, yeah, okay, fine. It does provide a basic definition of what is required of artistic research, but it does not make any statement about what is right or good artistic research, neither what is wrong or bad artistic research. But the Vienna Declaration points towards what distinguishes artistic research from other forms of research. The Vienna Declaration does not say that artistic research is only available at the higher arts educations, or that artistic research can only be operated seriously there. But it does say that the higher art education face specific challenges in dealing with artistic research, especially when it comes to academic recognition. And as I said already, it states clearly that it is a policy paper to use towards negotiations with political decision makers. So then we come to the Frascati manual. Here we are a little bit too early, I think, just a moment. So this is what it aims to be. So it is basically a way of harvesting statistic material from research activities. But it is used for also many other purposes, and in many countries, it is the basis for what can be funded as research. And this is the case in many of the East European countries. It could be the risk that you face also here in Italy when the existing funding comes to an end, because that was a special funding. And if it then is raised as an issue, is artistic research actually recognized by the Frascati manual, then there may be a problem. The next is, yeah. So here is the 6 folds. That is the classification of the Frascati manual. I don't need to read them for you because I think you can read them by yourself. It is the 6th one that is of concern for our part. But we will first have to look at the definition of a research activity. It needs to be, yeah, we need next slide. Novel, creative, uncertain, systematic, transferable, and/or reproducible. These criteria should not be difficult to fulfill from an artistic research perspective. You could say that reproducible could be difficult, but transferable is not. So even we would claim that artistic research can fulfill these 5 criteria without any difficulties. The fact still is that this is not recognized. So, because here we come to the difficulties, if we change to the next one, the Frascati terminology is from 2015, and for the first time, actually, arts was included in the text. but it operates with basically three different ways of talking about art: research for the arts, and research on the arts, and artistic expression. Research for the arts, that could be something that helps with some sort of chemistry. Research on the arts is all the humanities scholarly tradition. Then comes, according to the Frascati manual people, artistic expression. However, when they further go on, they then say artistic expression versus research. They introduce the word artistic performance. And then they say it's normally excluded from research development because artistic performances fail the novelty test of R&D, as they are looking for a new expression rather than for new knowledge. And again, also the producibility, how to transfer is not met. So by that, they actually take away the notion of artistic research, and you could even say, in a way, they take away the knowledge domain of the arts. So the consortium that has been working on the first and on the Vienna Declaration took on itself to actually very detailed go through the Frascati manual, and ended up with a lot of very concrete reformulations. I will not go into all of these details, but here are the two main ones, and that is that the sixth category, that is no humanities and the arts, should be shifted to humanities. And if we move to the next one, that the subcategory 6.4, there is no arts, art history, history of the arts, performing arts and music, should be changed to studies on the arts, and that there should be created a new seventh category for the arts, then with a number of subcategories. So what we want to introduce is actually the seventh knowledge domain of the arts. This was sent to the committee within the OECD who handles the Frascati manual, and this is the answer, that we got from the then chair of the committee. He was from the US at that time. And he seems to think that artistic research is handled in the Frascati manual, as I've just showed you. In fact, it is not. So we change again. The situation is that in the current version, there is made an unfortunate parity between artistic expressions, artistic performances, knowledge in the art, and artistic research. And as I said, the knowledge domain of the arts is still not recognized. So in a not so long-term perspective, it will be crucial that artistic research is formally recognized as being within the overall definition of research as formulated in the Frascati manual. And again, we have a look. I think if you change the slide, let's have a look again at these 5 criteria. Because as I said, these are not difficult. But the important thing is to actually start implementing these in all sorts of situations, in the teaching, in the way that artistic research is evaluated. So in every form where the issue of artistic research is raised, it is very important that we constantly document that these are relevant criteria also for the artistic research field. So this is where you could say, on one level, we have to be very practical and use them. And then on another level, it becomes important that we actually also start raising this issue towards the stakeholders, towards the decision makers. And that also means towards ministry, towards statistical agencies, and towards the members of the OECD committee, representatives that are representatives from each country here. So, exactly. Good. So if we go to the I think we could say that I finished there with the Frascati manual and this thing, and moves to 3 other concerns in relation to artistic research culture. If we have changed, yes, good. So the first one is the lack of references to other artistic research outputs. What we do see in very many artistic research projects is that they refer to, well, quite often to French philosophers, now also to people who are spokespeople on behalf of climate change and things like this. But we very seldom see references to other artistic research projects and other artistic researchers. So this again is something that is really needed to be aware of and to change the research culture. And at least in my view, there is a too strong reliance on writing as the main reflection and documenting formats. And there is too little integration, demonstration, documentation of the artistic practice, which is, after all, the basis of the knowledge production here. Yeah, I think I'm still in good time. So then I will take you into the research catalog for a brief introduction to that. It is the enhanced rich media platform to serve the artistic research community. It was created in 2010 by a funding from a Dutch research agency. They provided for the first development of 400,000 euros. And then when that period was over and the Society for Artistic Research took over the responsibility, over the next 10, 13 years, we have invested another approximately 700,000 euros for the further development and further development. It is now approximately 30,000 registered users, of which 15 is full users. There is 6 peer-reviewed journals that use the research catalog as the publication platform. There are close to 40 institutional portals within the research catalog, plus some research project portals, which also includes the 2 Italian consortia, the IartNET and the EIR. There is approximately 5,000 publicly available artistic research outputs available there in the research catalog, which means that worldwide it is the largest presentation platform towards the international artistic research community. And it works both for institutions and for individuals. So I think we could change to the next slide. So can you read this by yourself? Yeah, good. So then I don't have to list all of this, but maybe the most important things is what is stated here in the beginning. It gives the opportunity to make images and sound, not subordinate, but fundamentally on par with the text. And it provides the opportunity to step out of the linear narrative structure that you would find in any PDF. And these two things, I think, is the most, would say, basic functionalities of the of the research catalog. But it also is important that it does provide each user with a documentation, with a personal media repository, which means that you can document every step in your activity in this repository, and you can sort this from different sort of purposes. I think we could take the next one as well. And perhaps the most important, no, that was a bit one too quick. Can we get back again? Yeah. So the other important thing here is also to say that in a way, yes, the research catalog is a media archive, but it is more than that. Because it actually gives the opportunity to contextualize the artistic practice. So that opportunity, I mean, there are media archives that is good, but very few of them and very few university repositories can actually provide a contextualization of the artistic material, and that is what makes at least the research catalog quite unique. And then we thought we should try to show you 3 examples from the research catalog. And here I also have to introduce my colleague, Daniel Pozzi, who will take the more direct action here. The first one we are going to show you is a Swedish folk dance researcher. His called is Andreas Berthold, and he works at the Stockholm University of the Arts. And this exposition is called In Circles Leading On, Folk Dance, a Choreographic Intersection. The one on, yeah, exactly. In top, on top. Yeah, this. And yeah. Do we have sound? No. I think we have to stop and get sound. Yeah. The next one. Right. So do you hear me now? Yes. So this is what you see here is was a visual abstract of this page. It is in a way as a canvas. You can construct this site in principle in any way you want, and you can implement different sorts of videos, sounds, text, the way you think is most relevant for the way you want to present your project. And on these, and then you would link between the different pages by hyperlinks. So you can start in the top left corner if you want to, but you can also start, as we showed here, down at the bottom of a page if you would prefer that. So you can decide also how much you want to guide the reader. You can make it very obvious for the reader in which way to navigate, but you can also leave this much more open to the way that the person would like to meet your material. And you can include certainly references. You can include text where you declares in which way that your methods has been used, or in which way you have formulated the questions, or who you have actually also developed the project over time. So, yeah. Maybe we move to the third one. This is because we can only give you a sort of a glimpse, as I said, into this. We for the seminar in the afternoon, there will be options to understand how you actually do this from the creative side. So this is Stacy Sachs. This is called Luxurious Migrant, or Performing Whiteness. If we look at the navigation again, this is only a single page. So there is no links. And as you can see also here, there is not one way to read this. There is hints about in which way to navigate, but it is not necessary to do it in one particular way. But it includes, could you show the video that is inside the black one? That one, yes. Mm-hmm. So there should be a very nice sound, but that's the way it is. You can make this full screen. So you can lay different sort of media files on top of each other. So you could have a soundtrack on top of a video, or you could have a soundtrack on top of a slideshow, or whatever sort of way that you want to present these things. Yeah, I think we leave it there. And if we could manage to get back to the lines, this. Sorry? The first one, yes, there is that. You want to see it? Yeah, there is no, the sound is important, but yes, let's do that. Yeah. Yeah, but okay, we can show that first sequence. Like,
Can listen to the computer, no?
Yeah.
Dancing can be in itself.
Oh yeah, we not quite finished, but what I can say, this is it's a very interesting one. You should try to look it up by yourself. It's available for everybody. And what it's say on the one side, you can see he's creating this as a circular sort of introduction base. He has very good references to other artistic researchers, and he managed, I think, in a very good way to contextualize his folk dance project in this example. So it's a really interesting result. So if we then can come back to the last slide, which I hope we can take one by one, but not necessarily. Oh, no, it came out like that, but that's okay. So the conclusions, what is needed for artistic research to come of age, because it is not yet there. The Frascati manual must be reformulated to include the knowledge domain of the arts, and by that, acknowledge the role of artistic research. The higher art educational institutions must embrace artistic research as research stemming from the artistic practice and introduce artistic research on BA and MA levels. Artistic research must change its main references towards other artistic researchers and research outputs. And then finally, demonstration of artistic practice must be much more integrated in the documentation, presentation, and dissemination of artistic research outputs. In other words, less words, more art. Thank you.
John, I have a question for you, and then I invite the audience to also make questions and comments. And it's about the difference. One of the things I see as a difference between research and art, no? Because in research, typically a content, a production is distributed among a community of peers, Okay, it's enjoyed, filtered, read, and so on, and then you build upon it. There is a progress in knowledge which is quite linear in a way. No, if anybody says something or produces anything that is relevant, the community tries to start from there and go on, no? Which is something that usually doesn't happen in art because of the distribution system. So there are artists that are not just publishing a work, they may be supported by institutions, they may amplify their message in order to get many people, and those are the artists that usually are referenced, are known, and are there are other artists that build upon their work, but there are many artists that, because of the lack of this amplification system, don't become a part of that system of shared knowledge that helps research improve, no? And also, I think because there is no really a linear progress in art. No, art is not. How can I say? There is no straight line that brings toward an improvement of knowledge. And I think you also pointed to this, for example, when you said, you talked about the lack of references and not to artistic outputs. Many times there are references to other artistic works, but they are somehow implicit. There is no a system of quotation that allows you to refer to another artistic project as you do for quoting a reference from philosophy or from aesthetics and so on. So do you agree with me? Not so much, I saw from your expression.
Yes, I mean, there are, we say, maybe you could say, first of all, that the basic difference between an art project and an artistic research project is the willingness to share more than the output. I think this is at least is the most. Do you hear me now?
Be closer to the...
I'll be closer. Okay, so the main, I mean, difference between an art project and an artistic research project is that an artistic research project shares more than only the artistic output. You could also say that there are ethical issues connected to a research project that is not necessarily there for an art project. But the fact that things doesn't, we say, develop linear, I don't think it's an argument for not sharing, nor for an argument against that there is things that you can build on, not directly from project to project, but the, we say, when sharing methods, with sharing the breaking points in your developments, and when actually also providing some of those insights that goes connected to the project, I do see that there's obvious results from that. I think you mentioned that I was running the national doctoral school for Norway for 10 years approximately, which included all disciplines. And one of the things that was very clear when we made questions to people who had finished was the importance of actually sharing with people from the other disciplines, that there were obvious things that they could say use in their own practice also from the other disciplines. So I would not be so afraid of the linear aspect, and you could also say there are also leaps in many other disciplines. Would that partly at least answer your question? Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience? Yeah.
Hi, thank you. This was really useful to familiarize with the situation in Europe in terms of recognition of artistic research. So it's really useful. Thank you for that. So as you know, so I presented yesterday, so I come from the UK and that context, and I was wondering about the research catalogue and its function within the process in Europe of sort of recognition of artistic research.
Could you also
to that level that you aspire, or all Europeans aspire to, and so so my perception of what this of the research of the Journal of Artistic Research and the research catalogue does is that it provides a context to evidence the research that is being developed with the methods and methodologies and the process as it develops and various other aspects. And this is similar to when in the UK we sort of submit the research for its evaluation, that we submit various aspects of it that evidence the research dimension of it, and in terms of, and this happens in different formats. So I can see that these, the research catalogue provides for a platform for something like that to happen. So if research is shared, in depth like this, then its research dimension is evidence, then it's clear that is research, I guess. It's sort of that helps in recognizing its value and its quality, I suppose. But I'm also wondering, am I wrong in understanding it in this way? So is it in fact more of a journal? So is it a publication platform where researchers would publish their research? And this is very different, if it's considered one or the other, this is very different, and it sort of responds to different purposes, I suppose, as well. And also at the moment, there are journals that provide, there are platforms for, I don't know, visual essays or similar that will allow for different formats and various other bits to put in it as well, right? So what does this platform do? Because then, as you know, sort of known it from the very beginning. So I'm wondering now, at this point, within the context of the process of the recognition of research, is it really crucial so that the sort of the quality of research is recognized because of the fact that it's evidenced in this way? Or is it a journal that does a different thing? Or do you see what I'm saying? So I'm wondering what the function of the research catalogue is in this process.
And maybe there is maybe a certain flexibility here. So it does several sort of things at the same time. As I said, there are 6 peer-reviewed journals that use the platform. So by that, those who publish there can be, could get credit for the way that they are actually doing that in the peer-reviewed journals, and we could very straightforward say that there are far too there isn't enough journals at the moment to actually publish in. So that would be one thing. The other option that is there is for institutions, because they can, if you say, put their stamp on results that has been produced within their institution, and that is the institutional portals, and to a certain degree also these research portals. The decision making on what to be published there is up to the institution, and some institutions would say that, well, everything that is funded or everything that is done by someone who is working for us should be there. Others would say that no, before we put something into the public, we need an extra peer review. But that is for each of the portals to decide, as it is up to the for the portals also to decide how free are the material that you actually present, because and that is one of the strengths of the research catalog, that you can have one license for the exposition in itself, but then you can have a more restricted license for the different media files inside. So there may very well be, we say, art products or results in there that you do want to protect a bit more than you would for this sort of overall presentation. Is that part of the answer?
Yeah, no, that's very useful. I just think it's a fantastic context, and I think it has a lot of potential even for more. But thank you.
And what I could add to that is that also the use of the research catalog is free, and you can self-publish on the research catalog. Then there is no peer review. So you can say in that way it's quite a democratic platform at the same time. We have never seen it abused, though. I mean, over these 15 years approximately, that there has been no one who wants to do things that is difficult or use it for commercial purposes or things like that.
Hello. Thank you very much for your presentation. This is very important to define what could be artistic research, and to do so, you take the reference of research and development with a few criteria. But research and development, R&D, it's a specific approach for the research. This is a kind of subcategory of the research, as we have experimental research, applied research, and also action research. And so I'm wondering about the way that we can really apply this criteria coming from research and development, which is very connected to the industrial field. And more specifically, there is, I think, a question about the notion of transferability. Normally, when we use this notion in the research and development field, it's to focus on the fact that we can use the result to create an economical value. So I mean economical and financial value. So transferability, it's something that you can use to go from a specific research to apply in a kind of project or something like that. So how do you think that we can use this notion for the art? And do you think that we really use the research and development category as a reference one for the artistic research?
I am sorry, but the sound up here makes it quite difficult. But yeah, please.
Development, yeah, but there is a problem with the sound. So you use the research and development category and the criteria of the research and development to define artistic research. But research and development is a very specific category, which normally it's connected with the industrial approach. So, and normally in this category, one of the criteria, which is the transferability, it's to give an economic value and even a financial value to the research. So my question is a double question. One, do we use, do we have to use this research and development category of the research to define the artistic research? And if yes, what could be the transferability notion or criteria for the art?
Okay, maybe. Okay. I think from our point of view, we have taken in one way a pragmatic observational position, that the fact is that in many countries artistic research is not recognized because it is not within the Frascati manual categories. And to secure funding on equal basis, I have to say still that I'm not quite sure if I answer you correctly, but to secure financial basis on equal terms with the other disciplines within research, it is, I think, important to use those criteria. But I have to say that I do not see any risks in that. So maybe if there is something there that you think there are, you could maybe elaborate on that. But it is so.
Sorry, I can come here. One of the risks, it's a little shift between the art, from the art to applied art, to design, because and on my side, I'm okay that a part of the artistic research could be an applied art research. So in design, because with a design approach, it is possible to have a good transferability and to have an economic value from the research. So I think that's a very important question to avoid to be trapped in something that you need to apply the art if you want to have a good context to develop the artistic research.
But the definition in the Frascati manual goes for basic research as well as for applied research, and the definitions are not different. Those 5 criteria is there for both. So there, I mean, but the interpretation of what the transferable represents would be very different from applied art to basic art. No, sorry, applied science research to basic research. So from that perspective, yes, design and architecture would have a much more applied, probably, understanding. Not all, though, but I think you could see basic research also in these fields. But that would have another that would refer much more back to the fields, and not necessarily for someone who wants a specific result commercialized.
I agree with you, but research is research. It's more difficult in art, but our problem is the evaluation of research is more difficult in art, but art is like the other kind of research, and we have to do research in art as the other fields of research. So I agree with this proposal. So I agree, because research is research.
Okay, thank you.
So, yes, because our problem is the evaluation, the money, and the recognize the world has to recognize our research. So I think this is a good proposal. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this. I think the conversation with John can be further developed in the workshop this afternoon if you want to attend. Sorry. Yeah, and if anybody forgot to send us, demonstrate us interest in the workshop, they can go on the desk down there and ask to be registered on the research catalog, just in order to have an account that can be used later for the workshop. Thanks, John.